Hey folks, this is Joe with Palmetto Land Buyers. And what I wanted to do today, just briefly talk about the process that we go through when we make an offer and we're going through the steps of actually buying a piece of property. Palmetto Land Buyers, we only do business in South Carolina. We will buy land in Georgia and North Carolina, but it really needs to be close to the state borders. um, but for the most part, we're buying exclusively in South Carolina. We buy raw land, we'll buy developed land, we'll look at land in HOAs. But the thing with an HOA is you need to be careful because some of these HOAs are super stringent. They want you to build, using their builders, and we kind of stay away from those really for the most part. But I'll buy land, undeveloped land, large tract, small tract. So if you've got land that you want to sell, please reach out to me. Now, typically, here's how the process works. So let's say someone has a piece of land and they're interested in selling. They go to Google or they'll go to like an AI chat bot like ChatGPT, and they'll, type out, I want to sell my land in Columbia, or I want to sell my land in Saluda or Lexington, wherever it may be. And if you Google that, you're going to get a big list of buyers. Some of them are going to be uh, big institutional buyers like Open Door. A lot of them, I would say 99% of them are going to be out of state buyers. But you will have some that are local buyers, like myself. I live in South Carolina. I'm in Walterboro right now, but a lot of these other buyers are out of state. So you will find a local buyer, and I would, of course, I'm biased, but I would always say going with a local buyer is always going to be better. Um, you'll meet me in person, right? I will drive out there and look at the piece of property myself because this is, this is a small business for me. I'm the only employee, so this is what we do. Um, but yeah, you'll go there, you'll find a buyer, you'll go to a website. This is our website here, right? Palmetto Buyers. You go to a website like this, and the whole point of my website and other real estate websites where they're looking to buy property is to capture your information. So you'd go here, you'd type in first name, last name, property address, phone number, email, and as soon as you submit that, you'll be getting a phone call from me. I'd say within the minute or within at least 5 minutes, you'll probably get a phone call from me asking for details about the property, asking for permission to visit the property and walk the property so that I can make you a cash offer. Okay. So, first thing you'll do is go to the website, or you'll find the number here, right up here in the corner. You'd give me a call and you say, hey, Joe, I'm thinking about selling property. First thing I'm going to do is go out, visit the property. I'm going to walk it. I'm going to, if it's raw land, I'm going to just look and see how much vegetation's on the property. Is it overgrown? Is it cleared? How big it is? What the layout looks like? And a lot of that information I can get online. What I really want to see when I'm visiting the property is the neighborhood's aesthetic, right? Because if you go to a neighborhood and let's say there's just a bunch of junky trailers, 1960s, 1970 model trailers. They all look like rust buckets. And the neighborhood just looks like it's in distress. It looks like a bad area. That's going to have a lot of influence on the offer price that I make. Because if you've got an acre of land in Charleston in a nice neighborhood, price on that's super high because Charleston's already developed. I'd say most of Charleston's developed already. Prices are, real estate is very valuable in that town. And so land is, especially raw land or undeveloped land, is really hard to come across. But if you've got property in Bamberg County, Bamberg is a low population county. There's just not a lot of industry. There's not a lot of growth there. And it has its areas where you'll go and it'll look like a ghost town. It'll be just a bunch of trailers or a bunch of houses, and most of them are in distress or in mass disrepair. So that'll be the first thing. Is I'd go out to the property, I'd take a look at it. While I'm at the property, I'll call you and I'll actually make the cash offer on site. So I'll call you and I'll say, hey, Mr. John, I'm here at 123 Main Street. I like the property. I think it has potential. I can offer you $10,000 cash. I can offer you $15,000 cash, right? Whatever the number might be. And then at that point, the ball's in your court. You need to consider that offer, consider that price, see if it's agreeable to you. If you feel that it is a fair price, then you can accept it. Now, my offer is usually on the lower end, but there's trade-offs, right? I'm going to offer you a little bit less, but I'm going to be paying for the attorney expenses. I'm going to be taking responsibility and overseeing the process from start to finish, right? So I'm taking it to the attorney. The attorney will represent both myself as the buyer and you as the seller. They will do the title search. They will prepare the documents. They will schedule the closing. So I'm going to be paying for that. I'm going to be taking an active approach and walking the contract step to step to step to make sure we hit the finish line, right? Because it's in my best interest that we also close on this, because I want to close on the property and improve the property and sell the property and resell the property. So while I offer less, there is no guessing on my part. I've got a process put in place, and so I can close on real estate very, very quickly. We're talking 1 week from offer to money in your pocket, right? Which, if you go the traditional route, it's typically not that case. Land is notorious for taking a long time to sell. Why is that? Is most people, when they're buying a house, are not necessarily looking to build a house, and not necessarily in that town. So the pool of buyers for land, for raw land, is significantly less than, say, if you were selling a house, or even if you were selling land with utilities in place already, right? Because if you've got septic in place, well in place, or if you've got water tapped, or if you got all these things, this infrastructure already built in, it's less that a buyer needs to do in order to get to their home, right? Most people just want to buy a home and move into that home. They're not interested in the many month-long process of building a home. So a lot of times, especially when it comes to land, if you go the traditional route, which you definitely can, and it's definitely an option, it's going to take significantly more time. I'm talking, 90, 120 days, 90 days on the fast end, 120 days, 160 days, it's going to take a long time, 6 months to sell at some point. Sometimes it takes that long. But yeah, so we can close really quickly. On the opposite end, I can also take as long as you want. So if you say, Joe, like, I got a shed on the property and I got a couple carports, and wow, I'd love to close in a week. I actually would much rather wait, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or can we close in a week and then give me 30 days to move stuff off the property? When you're working with me, I also offer a high level of flexibility, and I can work around your schedule. So that's another kind of, another pro of working with of a cash buyer like myself. But yeah, so again, just to recap, visit the website, I call, I visit the property, I make you a verbal offer. If you accept the verbal offer, then I send a written offer, which is the purchase contract, and I'll share with you what the purchase agreement looks like. And I'll probably do a whole video on the purchase agreement, but my purchase agreement is very straightforward. It's only 2 pages. Sometimes you'll get purchase agreements that are like 15 pages long, super crazy, but I like to operate under simplicity, right? So to me, the purchase agreement is I am promising to buy the property for X amount, and you are promising to sell me the property for X amount. Now, I'll sometimes put contingencies on that contract, like I will pay the closing costs, or I will need 5 days to inspect the property to make sure the soil suitability for septic, so on and so on. So those are little caveats that I may add to the contract. I always pay for the closing costs, so that's always on there. But sometimes if I'm unsure that the property is going to be suitable for a septic system, I'll put in there, a 5-day period where I can hire a soil classifier to go out, look at the soil, and make sure that I could at least put in a septic system. Again, most of the time when I'm buying real estate, when I'm buying land, is because my intentions are to improve the property. I want to either put a mobile home on this property or build a house on this property. All right, I'm looking for this contract. Give me 1 second. All right, contracts. And here it is. All right, so here's the contract. And again, this is a short 2-pager, not even 1.5 page document. You'll initial on the first page, sign on the last page. And really what you want to look at here is the parties. So the buyer would be you, the person selling the property. The seller would be me, Palm Meadowland Buyers. Then you have the property be sold. If it's raw land, usually it doesn't have an address, so we would put the street that the property's on. It will always have a tax map number that is assigned by the county. I'll put the city, the zip, and the county here as well. Very important on this section. I'm sorry, down here we've got the purchase price. So if the offer's $10,000, it would go here. The method of payment. When you're dealing with me, the method of payment's always going to be cash. And then the stated closing date. And again, this is where I can be super flexible. We can do it in a week, or we can do it in 30 days, or we can do it however long you want to take. I'm willing to work with you. Okay, expiration of offer is here. Offers are usually good for 48 hours. Unless otherwise dictated on the contract. And then you've got here special stipulations and contingencies. And this is where I would normally add that I'd cover the closing costs in the sale. So that means that you're walking away with the stated amount, or I'd put on there, I need a 5-day inspection period for just to make sure that the soil's suitable or whatever the case may be. Okay, so this is another area to look in, and this would stand out because usually this is going to be typed out and written in a different font. And then you've got, you've got an extension, you've got a FASML here that means that we can sign this electronically, and then you've got an assignment and release. Now, the way the assignment and release works for me, because I am the end buyer, I'll usually put the property under contract with one LLC, and then at the time of closing, I will assign the contract to one of my other companies, depending on what we're doing. So if this is a house, I have an LLC that's dedicated for renovating homes, and so we'd assign it to that LLC. If this is going to be a place where we're putting a mobile home, I have an LLC where all we do is the improvement and development of mobile homes, and then we put it there. If this can be a property where we're just doing land improvements, and we'll put it somewhere else, right? So this assignment gives me the ability, once I've done my due diligence and I've decided I'm going to do X with this property, I can then go ahead and assign it to that particular company, and then we go ahead and we sign. Once we've got this signed, then I will deliver it to the attorney. Okay. And when it comes to your attorneys, I'm willing to work with your attorney if you have one that you're comfortable with, or we can work with my attorney that I've used in the past. Again, the attorney's going to represent both of us in either case. Whether you pick the attorney or I pick the attorney, they're going to be representing both parties. Unless you decide you want your own attorney, which is your right, and it's your prerogative to do that. You would have to cover the attorney expenses in that case, right? So if you want your own attorney, you'd have to cover that. But if you want me to hire an attorney, I'll hire one to represent both of us. You can pick, I can pick, whatever the case may be. But in that case, I'll pay for it. But we deliver it to them. They take a look at the contract. They'd hire a title abstractor. That title abstractor goes to the county. They're going to research that you have the authority to sell the property, that you are who you say you are. They're going to make sure that there are no liens, no judgments, that there are no encumbrances on the property. That means that there's no judgment, there's no liens, no mortgage on there. You're not on the property or even against you, right? So an old credit card bill or something like that. So they make sure that none of that is on there. And then after that, we schedule closing. And after we've scheduled closing, then we meet at the attorney's office. You'll sign the deed at the attorney's office, and then that's where you'll receive your cash money. So you won't receive physical cash, but the attorney's going to ask you whether you want a cashier's check or whether you want the funds wired. And at that point, the transaction's concluded. You're in the office, you've received the money, and you've signed the deed, and then everyone can go on their merry way. So that's kind of the process in a nutshell. If you've got questions, or if you want to know more, or if you want to talk to me about property that you have for sale, feel free to give me a call. My number's 803-201-9137. And I'd love to take a look at whatever land, or if you're selling houses in South Carolina. All right, thank you.